I never thought I'd find myself in this situation. My name is Mark, and I've been married to Jessica for 6 years. We had a decent relationship, or so I thought. We lived in a cozy house in a nice neighborhood, made plans for our future, and even had a couple of cats that kept us entertained. But things started to feel off. It was subtle at first, like a flickering light bulb that I just couldn't ignore. Jessica had always been a bit of a free spirit. She loved to go out, socialize, and express herself. But in the past few months, I noticed a change. She was spending more time out with friends. The late nights became more frequent, and I found myself increasingly alone in our home. At first, I shrugged it off. Maybe she was just in a phase or trying to find herself again. I had my hobbies too, but there was a nagging feeling in my gut. The first sign that something was wrong came when she started acting defensive about her phone. It was odd. She'd leave the room to take calls, her laughter echoing against the walls, but when I asked who it was, she'd brush it off, saying it was just work-related. Work-related. I work from home, and I've never seen her so invested in her job. Then there was the time I tried to look her in the eye and tell her I loved her. She looked away, fidgeting with her bracelet, something she usually loved to flaunt. It felt like she was hiding something, and the more I thought about it, the more I started to connect the dots. But you never want to believe that the person you love, the person you vow to spend your life with, could betray you. So I kept pushing it aside, hoping it was just my imagination. One Saturday afternoon, I decided to take a stroll through our local art district. I've always been an admirer, and Jessica had got me into visiting galleries and exhibitions. As I wandered from one gallery to another, I stumbled upon a street artist working on a massive mural. He was captivating, with a tangled mane of hair and a confident swagger. I couldn't help but watch him as he splashed color across the wall. Suddenly, I noticed a familiar face in the crowd. Jessica. She was standing there, laughing and whispering to this guy, a twinkle in her eye that made my stomach churn. At that moment, it was like the world froze. I wanted to storm over there, confront her, and demand answers, but I just stood there, hidden behind a corner. I watched as she brushed her hand against his arm, a smile that looked all too intimate. It felt like someone had punched me in the gut. I suddenly realized that everything I had been feeling wasn't paranoia. It was truth slapping me in the face. After I got back home, my mind buzzed with disbelief and rage. I paced back and forth, trying to make sense of what I had seen. I had to confront her. I needed to hear it from her mouth, whatever twisted explanation she had. When she finally came home, her face lit up briefly, but the moment she saw mine, it fell. "Hey, you okay?" she asked, and I barely recognized her voice. It felt laced with false concern. "Jessica, we need to talk," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I watched her face morph from confusion to dread. "What about?" "About you and that artist. I saw you today." I could feel the weight of my words hanging between us, thick and suffocating. Her expression turned defensive. "What do you mean? I don't know what you're talking about." I couldn't believe it. The lies were spilling right out of her mouth, and I knew she was stalling for time. I pulled out my phone, my hands shaking as I showed her the photo I took from a distance. "Look at this. You think I'm just going to sit back and let you lie to my face?" Her facade cracked as she stammered. "It's not what you think, Mark. We were just having fun. It meant nothing." The anger surged through me. I felt betrayed, furious, and completely broken. How could she dismiss this? It wasn't nothing. I had given her my heart, and here she was, gallivanting around with some street artist. As I looked into her eyes, I saw the guilt flicker for just a moment, but she quickly masked it with defiance. "You're overreacting. You've never been supportive of my interests." My mind was racing. How had we gotten here? How had my love morphed into this betrayal? I felt a wave of sadness wash over me, pooling alongside the anger as I realized the depth of her deceit. I had to make a decision. Would I let this slide, or would I confront this head-on? I knew I had to figure out my next move, not just for myself, but for our future, whatever that might hold. I felt lost, but I knew one thing. I needed clarity. I needed to understand what I truly wanted moving forward. The confrontation with Jessica left my mind racing and my heart heavy. I was filled with a mix of emotions: anger, betrayal, disbelief, and an overwhelming sense of loss. How could the woman I loved, the one I promised to cherish for better or worse, reduce our years together to a fleeting affair with a street artist. The very thought made my skin crawl. In the days that followed, I fell into a haze of confusion. I couldn't focus on work, and every time I glanced at Jessica, it felt like I was staring at a stranger. She tried to act as if everything was normal, but I could see through her facade. Every laugh felt forced, every smile a mask hiding the truth. I felt suffocated in my own home, and it became painfully clear that things would never return to the way they were. Jessica continued to insist that it was just a fling, that she was confused and that it didn't mean she loved me any less. I couldn't wrap my head around that. I mean, how can you say you love someone while cheating on them? We had been through so much together. Didn't that count for anything? I was stuck in this twisted limbo, feeling like I was losing control over my life. As I grappled with the fallout from our argument, I started to devise a plan. I didn't want to wallow in misery or play the victim. I needed to regain my sense of self and my power. I wanted to turn the tables, to show Jessica that I could thrive without her, that I could become someone who was worth more than just a fleeting romance. The idea hit me one night while I was aimlessly scrolling through social media. I stumbled upon a post about art collectors and the rising trends in the art world. I'd always appreciated art, but I had never considered diving into it seriously. Maybe this was the path forward for me. I could forge a new identity, becoming not just an admirer of art but a collector, and I'd do it with a vengeance. I started researching everything I could about art collecting. I read books, subscribed to art magazines, and attended online webinars. I learned about different artists, movements, and what made art valuable. I even began visiting galleries not just to admire but to network. I spoke with curators, collectors, and artists, soaking up their knowledge like a sponge. I was determined to carve out a niche for myself, not just as a collector, but as someone who could dominate the art scene. As I immersed myself in this world, I felt a sense of liberation. I was channeling my pain into something productive. I started purchasing small pieces, focusing on emerging artists and unique styles. I loved the thrill of discovering something new and sharing it with others. Each new acquisition brought me a sense of accomplishment, a small step toward creating a new life without Jessica. Meanwhile, Jessica continued her attempts to mend our relationship. She would try to engage me in conversations, asking how my day was, but I had grown distant. I was no longer the same man who would bend over backward to meet her every whim. I found myself slipping away, and the distance only fueled my desire to succeed in my new venture. I realized I didn't need her validation. I was building my own identity. After a few months of collecting, I finally made a significant purchase that would change everything. I encountered an up-and-coming artist named Leo, whose work was raw and emotional, exactly what I needed to make a statement in the art world. I reached out to him and we hit it off. He was a passionate creator, and we spent hours discussing art, life, and everything in between. I could feel a connection growing between us, not just as a collector and artist, but as friends. One night, while having dinner at a trendy restaurant, Leo casually mentioned that he had a show coming up in the city. "You should come, it's going to be fantastic," he said, his eyes sparkling with excitement. I agreed to attend, knowing it would be an excellent opportunity to showcase my new collection and my growing involvement in the art community. That night, as I walked through the venue, I felt a surge of pride. My collection was unique, and I was no longer just Mark, Jessica's husband. I was Mark, the emerging art collector. I mingled with other collectors and artists, sharing stories and insights, fully immersed in a world that was beginning to feel like home. Meanwhile, Jessica was left in the dark about my transformation. I could see her watching me from the sidelines, confused by the new energy I was exuding. She would occasionally text, asking if we could talk and work through our issues, but I was no longer inclined to entertain her excuses. I had tasted freedom and self-worth, and I wasn't going to let her back into my life without a fight. The more I flourished in this new realm, the more I wanted to show her what she was missing. I wanted Jessica to see what she had lost, to feel the sting of regret for choosing someone else over our life together. I began plotting my revenge, not out of hatred, but as a means of reclaiming my narrative. I would weave a story of success and cultural domination, and I would do it without her. As I embarked on this journey, I understood that I had to be strategic. It wasn't just about revenge. It was about becoming the best version of myself, a version that Jessica never thought I could be. I was ready to show the world and her what I was truly capable of. And somewhere deep down, I hoped it would make her realize the gravity of her betrayal. As the months rolled on, my transformation into an art collector was taking shape, and with it, so was my plan for revenge. I had immersed myself so deeply into this world of colors and canvases that it started to feel like a part of me. The rush of attending gallery openings and art fairs, the thrill of acquiring pieces that sparked conversations, it was invigorating. And with each piece I added to my collection, I felt more empowered, more alive, as if I was slowly erasing the bitter memories of my past life with Jessica. The opportunity for a grand reveal was approaching fast. Leo's upcoming exhibition was just around the corner, and I had something special planned. I wanted to showcase my collection in tandem with his work. I had already secured a spot in the gallery for my pieces, and Leo was excited to feature them alongside his own. This would be the moment when I could shine, not just as a collector, but as someone who had risen from the ashes of betrayal. In the weeks leading up to the exhibition, I barely communicated with Jessica. I could sense her frustration rising as she reached out, trying to reconnect. "Can we talk? I miss you," she'd text, but I ignored her. Each time I chose not to respond, I felt a thrill of control. I had spent too long being the one to seek her approval, and now it was time for her to realize that I was moving on without her. The night of the exhibition arrived, and the atmosphere was electric. I donned a tailored suit that made me feel sophisticated and confident. As I stepped into the gallery, I was greeted by the buzz of art enthusiasts, collectors, and critics, all mingling, analyzing, and appreciating the pieces on display. I felt a rush of adrenaline as I realized that I belonged here, amidst the laughter and chatter, the clinking of glasses filled with wine, and the scent of fresh paint and polished wood. Leo's work was stunning, and I could see why he had garnered attention in the art community. His pieces were bold and filled with emotion, and he had put his heart and soul into this exhibition. As I stood beside him, watching guests admire his art, I was also aware of my own collection, a carefully curated selection of pieces that told my story of resilience and growth. I made sure to introduce myself to everyone I could, shaking hands and exchanging business cards like a seasoned veteran. I shared my journey with fellow collectors and artists, and they listened intently, recognizing the passion that fueled my new life. I was no longer the timid husband lost in his wife's shadows. I was Mark the collector, and I was thriving. As the evening progressed, I spotted Jessica across the room. She had come, and my heart raced with anticipation and anxiety. She was dressed elegantly, but there was a wrinkle of confusion etched on her face as she surveyed the gallery. I could tell she was shocked, maybe even impressed, but I needed to see her reaction up close. "Jessica," I called out, approaching her with a calmness I didn't feel. "I didn't expect to see you here." She turned, a mixture of surprise and guilt flashing across her face. "Mark, I had to come. I heard about the show and I wanted to see it for myself." "Glad you could make it." I gestured toward the crowd. "It's quite the turnout, isn't it? I've been working hard to build my collection." Her expression shifted as she glanced at the pieces I had gathered. Wow, Mark, these are incredible. I didn't realize you had become so involved in the art scene." "Yeah, it's been a journey," I replied, watching her closely. The sincerity in her voice felt like a double-edged sword. I knew she was impressed, but I also sensed a hint of regret. "I've been spending a lot of time with Leo, the artist. He's really been a great mentor." Jessica's smile faltered for a moment, but she quickly recovered. "I see that. I met him at a party once. He's talented." "Yeah, he is," I said, keeping my tone light. "You should see how passionate he is about his work. I've learned so much from him." I could see the discomfort on her face as I casually dropped each mention of Leo. It was almost too easy to push those buttons now that I was in control. We continued to talk, and I could see Jessica trying to find her footing, attempting to navigate this new dynamic. She complimented my collection, but her words felt hollow, like an echo of something she once cherished. I could sense that she wanted to rekindle our connection, but I was no longer that person. "I've been trying to reach you," she said, her voice softening. "I miss what we had, Mark." I took a deep breath, choosing my words carefully. I had rehearsed this moment in my mind countless times. "You mean what we had before you chose to betray me, before you decided that a fling with a street artist was worth more than our life together?" Her expression shifted, going from remorseful to defensive. "Mark, I didn't mean for it to happen. It was a mistake. I thought we were drifting apart. I wanted to feel alive again." "Alive? You think running off with someone else made you feel alive?" I shot back, my voice rising slightly. "You shattered everything we built for a moment of excitement. You can't just waltz back into my life and pretend everything is fine." The tension between us was palpable, and I reveled in the realization that I held the upper hand. This was my moment, and I was determined to make her feel the full weight of her betrayal. As the night dragged on, I continued to showcase my collection, allowing Jessica to watch from a distance as I received praise and admiration. I spoke about my plans for the future, about new pieces I wanted to acquire, and how I was becoming a part of this vibrant community. Each compliment I received felt like a dagger in the heart of our past, and I could sense the growing regret in her eyes. In that moment, I realized that my revenge wasn't just about hurting Jessica, it was about reclaiming my identity. I was no longer defined by her actions or choices. Instead, I was becoming someone she would envy, the husband she had betrayed now, flourishing without her. As the exhibition came to a close, I felt a surge of triumph wash over me. I had shown Jessica the man I had become, and I knew the sting of my success would linger in her mind long after the night was over. I walked away knowing that I had not only built a new life, but had also become the better version of myself, one that Jessica could only watch from the sidelines. The exhibition was a resounding success, and the adrenaline still coursed through me as I left the gallery that night. I could hardly contain my excitement. I had finally broken free from the chains of my past and emerged as a new man. The energy in the room, the buzz of admiration, the way people approached me to talk about my collection, it was intoxicating. But there was also a lingering sense of satisfaction as I thought about Jessica's reaction. I had shown her that I could thrive without her. In the days following the exhibition, the aftermath of that night settled into my routine. I received calls and messages from collectors and artists who were intrigued by my collection. They wanted to collaborate, to explore potential acquisitions, and I felt like I had finally found my place in this vibrant world. I made plans to attend more events, network further, and expand my collection in ways I had never imagined. Meanwhile, Jessica continued to reach out. She sent messages that fluctuated between apologetic and desperate. "Mark, I'm really sorry for what happened. Can we at least talk about it?" I could feel her mingling regret and a longing for the connection we once shared, but I brushed it off. I didn't want to revisit the pain of our past. I was too busy building my future. One evening, I decided to host a small gathering at my home, a celebration of my recent success and my growing collection. I invited a mix of fellow collectors, artists, and even some friends from my past. It felt refreshing to showcase my accomplishments and bring together people who shared my passion. I wanted to surround myself with positivity to emphasize how far I had come. As my guests mingled, I felt a surge of pride. I had transformed my living room into a mini gallery, displaying my favorite pieces, and the atmosphere was electric. Laughter echoed in the air, accompanied by the clinking of wine glasses. I felt alive, surrounded by people who appreciated the world I had immersed myself in. And then, just as I thought I could enjoy the night uninterrupted, there was a knock at the door. I opened it to find Jessica standing there, looking vulnerable and out of place. She was dressed elegantly, but there was a nervousness about her that I hadn't seen in a long time. "Mark, I just wanted to stop by," she said, her voice shaky. "I saw the event on social media and I thought maybe I could say congratulations." I was taken aback, but I managed to mask my surprise. "Thanks, but this is a private gathering." I glanced back at my guests who were now eyeing Jessica curiously. Can we just talk for a minute? She continued, her eyes searching mine. Please, I just want to explain. I hesitated. Part of me wanted to slam the door and shut her out for good, but another part was curious about what she had to say. I could feel the tension in the air, and I recognized that this moment could change everything. Fine, come in, but just for a minute. I relented, stepping aside to let her enter. I couldn't help but notice how her presence shifted the energy in the room. My guests whispered among themselves, intrigued by the unexpected turn of events. I led Jessica to a quieter corner of the room, away from the prying eyes of my friends. What do you want, Jessica? I asked, my tone firm but not unkind. She took a deep breath, composing herself. I know I've messed up, but I've been doing a lot of thinking since that night. I realize how much I hurt you, and I'm so sorry. I miss you, Mark. Her voice trembled, and for a moment I almost felt pity for her. Almost. Do you really think saying sorry is enough? You broke my trust. You shattered our marriage for a fling with a street artist. You think I can just forget about that? I could see the hurt in her eyes, but I was unwilling to let her manipulate me with guilt. Please just listen. I was lost and I made a terrible mistake. I thought I needed something different, something exciting. But now I know that I had everything I wanted right in front of me. I miss asterisk us asterisk. The sincerity in her eyes was hard to ignore, but I had spent months reconstructing my life without her, and I wasn't about to throw it away. You can't come in here and expect me to forget everything. My life is moving forward, and I'm not going to stall it for you. Her expression faltered, and I saw the flicker of desperation. I can change. I will change. Just give me a chance to prove it. No, I said firmly, shaking my head. You had your chance and you threw it away. I'm not interested in being your backup plan. I could feel the weight of my words settle in the air between us. Mark, please, she pleaded, her voice rising slightly. I know I can be better. I want to be better for you. My resolve was firm, and I felt the anger rising within me again. This isn't about you wanting to be better. It's about the damage you've done. I deserve better than someone who keeps their options open. Jessica's shoulders slumped, and for a moment I thought I saw the woman I had fallen in love with. But then I remembered the betrayal, the lies, the pain that she had caused. You need to leave, I said, my voice steady and unyielding. She reached for my arm, her grip weak. Don't shut me out. I can't lose you again. You already have, I replied coldly, pulling away from her touch. You made your choice when you cheated. I'm not your second chance. I turned to walk away, leaving her standing there, a mixture of regret and anger washing over her face. I didn't look back as I rejoined my guests, forcing myself to focus on the laughter and conversation around me. As the night wore on, I found it difficult to shake the remnants of our encounter. I was proud of how far I had come, yet the emotion Jessica stirred within me felt like a ghost haunting my newfound clarity. I realized that moving on wasn't just about building a new life. It was also about learning to let go of the past, even when it felt like it was clawing at my heart. I pushed those thoughts aside, determined to enjoy the moment. I had built this life for myself, and I wasn't going to allow her to disrupt it. I had chosen to embrace my new identity as an art collector, and I was not going to let her back in. The art world was filled with possibilities, and I was ready to explore them all, completely free from the chains of my past. The days following Jessica's unexpected appearance at my gathering were a whirlwind. I was caught between the thrill of my new life and the haunting echoes of my past. Even though I had successfully created a new identity for myself, there were moments when I would catch myself staring into space, reflecting on everything that had happened. But I quickly reminded myself, I was not that man anymore. I had moved on. In the weeks that followed, I dedicated myself to my art collection and continued to pursue opportunities within the vibrant community I had embraced. My phone buzzed with messages from fellow collectors and artists who were keen to collaborate or show me their work. I felt like I was riding a wave of success, and there was no stopping me now. One afternoon, I received a call from a prominent gallery owner named Sarah, who had heard about my recent exhibition and wanted to discuss a potential showcase of my collection. My heart raced at the thought. This was a significant step forward, a chance to establish myself further in the art world. I agreed to meet with her, feeling a mixture of excitement and nervousness. When we met, Sarah was enthusiastic, her eyes sparkling with ambition and vision. "Mark, I've been following your journey and I'm impressed by your collection. You've got an eye for emerging talent, and I think we could put together a fantastic exhibition that showcases your work alongside those artists. It would be a great way to gain exposure for both you and them." I felt a rush of pride. "That sounds amazing. I'd love to do it," I replied, eager to align myself with someone who understood the art scene as deeply as I did. As we discussed potential themes and pieces to include, I found myself increasingly energized. My past with Jessica felt like a distant memory, overshadowed by this new vision of myself. I was finally stepping into the light, leaving behind the shadows of betrayal. But just as things seemed to be falling perfectly into place, Jessica resurfaced again. One evening, as I was preparing for a fundraiser event at the gallery, I received a message from her. "Mark, can we talk? I really need to see you." I hesitated. Part of me wanted to ignore her, to continue forward without acknowledging the past. But another part, the part that still felt the sting of betrayal and the weight of unresolved feelings, was curious about what she had to say. I agreed to meet her, but only in a public space. I wasn't ready to bring her back into my life completely. When I saw her at the cafe, my heart sank. She looked different, almost fragile. Her hair hung loosely, and her eyes were rimmed with exhaustion, emotions that only made the space between us feel more pronounced. "Mark," she began, her voice barely above a whisper, "thank you for agreeing to meet." "Let's get to the point, Jessica," I said, cutting through the small talk. "What do you want?" "I've been doing a lot of thinking since I last saw you at the exhibition," she said, her tone earnest. "I know I hurt you, and I've been going through therapy to understand why I made the choices I did. I want to take responsibility for my actions. I'm sorry for what I did, and I want to make amends." I rolled my eyes, feeling the anger simmer within me. "Make amends? You think you can just apologize and everything will be fine? You shattered my trust. That doesn't just disappear because you say you're sorry now." "I know that," she exclaimed, her voice rising slightly. "I don't expect everything to be fine. I just want the chance to show you that I'm working on myself. I know I can be different." "Different? You think attending therapy is enough to undo the damage?" I shot back. "You need to understand that I've spent months rebuilding my life without you. I've found something in myself that I didn't even know existed." "I can see that," she admitted, her eyes reflecting a mixture of admiration and regret. "I've seen what you've accomplished. You're thriving and I'm proud of you. But I also know that I made a terrible mistake. I thought I needed to find excitement elsewhere, but I understand now that I was running away from the love we had. I miss you, Mark." Hearing her say that took me by surprise. Part of me felt pity for her, but another part of me, a louder, stronger voice, reminded me of the pain and deceit she had caused. "You miss me now that I'm doing well. Where was that sentiment when you decided to cheat?" Tears welled in her eyes, and I could see the struggle within her. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I just want you to know that I'm not the same person I was. I'm working hard to be someone who can be trusted again." I looked away, studying the ground as I wrestled with my thoughts. The urge to grant her forgiveness battled against the memories of our past, memories that felt like a heavy anchor. I didn't want to go back to a place where I felt vulnerable, where I could be hurt again. "Jessica," I said finally, my voice steadier than I felt, "you're right. You don't deserve my forgiveness right now. I've worked too hard to rebuild my life, and I'm sorry, but I can't let you back in. Not yet, maybe not ever." Her face fell, and I could see the realization hit her like a wave. "I understand," she whispered, her shoulders slumping. "I just wanted you to know that I'm trying to be better for myself, and I hope maybe one day you can see that." As she got up to leave, I felt a mix of relief and sadness. I had stood my ground, but I couldn't help but feel a pang of regret for what we once had. Yet as I watched her walk away, I felt an undeniable sense of empowerment. I was no longer the man who would just accept whatever was thrown at him. I was building a life I could be proud of. I was taking my own path, free from the shadows of betrayal. The next couple of weeks flew by as the gallery event approached. I poured my energy into preparation, ensuring everything was perfect. On the night of the fundraiser, The atmosphere buzzed with anticipation, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of pride as I mingled with guests and shared my collection. As the night went on, I reveled in the compliments and the genuine interest people had in my work. I felt like I had finally emerged from the fog of betrayal, standing tall in a community that appreciated my passion and dedication. I was no longer Mark, the husband who had been cheated on. I was Mark, the art collector, and I was finally in control of my destiny. As the fundraiser night unfolded, the warmth of the room enveloped me like a comforting blanket. The laughter of guests mingled with the rich aroma of wine and the soft melodies of a live band playing in the corner, creating an atmosphere of celebration. I watched as people admired my collection, discussing the pieces with excitement and genuine interest. It felt surreal to finally be surrounded by a community that valued my passion for art. The pinnacle of the evening came when I stepped up to the podium to give a brief speech. As I looked out over the crowd, friends, collectors, artists, all gathered to appreciate not just the art but the journey that had brought me to this moment, I felt a swell of pride. Thank you all for being here tonight. This collection represents not just art to me, but a journey of growth, resilience, and rediscovery. I began, my voice steady. I've learned that life can throw unexpected challenges your way, but it's how you respond to those challenges that defines you. After experiencing betrayal and heartbreak, I chose to turn my pain into passion. I immersed myself in the world of art, and through this journey, I discovered not only my love for collecting, but also my love for creating a life that reflects who I truly am. The crowd responded with applause, and I felt a rush of gratitude for the people who had supported me along the way. I shared a few stories about some of the artists whose work I had collected, highlighting their journeys and the inspiration behind their pieces. It was empowering to stand there, sharing my newfound purpose with everyone, and for the first time in a long time, I felt completely at ease. As the evening continued, I mingled with guests, discussing future collaborations and potential acquisitions. I was in my element, thriving in this newfound identity. Every compliment and conversation felt like a step further away from the pain of my past. I was building a life rooted in passion, creativity, and authenticity, and it was exhilarating. After the event, I returned home, still buzzing from the night's success. I felt a sense of closure wash over me, a peaceful acceptance of the journey I had taken. The hurt from Jessica's betrayal was still a part of my story, but it no longer defined me. I had reclaimed my narrative and transformed it into one of empowerment and growth. In the following weeks, I continued to engage with my art community, attending new exhibitions and building relationships with artists who inspired me. I started to curate my own mini exhibits in local cafes, showcasing emerging artists and giving them a platform to shine. It was fulfilling to be part of something bigger than myself, to create opportunities for others while solidifying my place in the art world. And then one day, out of the blue, I received a message from Jessica. I felt a surge of mixed emotions as I opened it. "Mark, I saw your recent exhibition. It's incredible. I'm so proud of what you've accomplished. It looks like you've found yourself again." I stared at the screen, contemplating my response. Part of me felt the sting of anger at her audacity to comment on my success after everything that had transpired. But another part of me, one that had worked hard to move on, recognized that this was a moment of closure I hadn't anticipated. I typed a response carefully, taking my time to articulate my thoughts. "Thank you for your message. It's been a journey, and I'm glad to have found a path that feels true to me. I hope you're doing well." As I hit send, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. This wasn't about forgiveness. It was about accepting that she was no longer a part of my life. I had moved on, and I now had the power to choose how much of my past to carry with me. The days turned into weeks, and I continued to embrace my new life. I found joy in the little things, in the process of curating art, connecting with talented individuals, and exploring new ideas. I realized that my happiness was not contingent on having someone by my side. It was about being true to myself and following my passions. Reflecting on my journey, I recognized that while the betrayal had hurt deeply, it had also propelled me into a life filled with purpose. I had transformed pain into passion, and that was something I would carry with me always. I learned that sometimes the most profound changes come from the darkest places, and it's in those moments that we discover who we truly are. As I stood before my collection one quiet evening, the sunlight filtering through the windows, I felt an overwhelming sense of peace. I was no longer bound by the ghosts of my past. I had emerged stronger, more resilient, and completely free. I was Mark, the art collector, and I was exactly where I was meant to be.